Let's get real, folks. Forget your alarm clocks and snooze buttons. In today's world, we rely so much on technology to wake us up and get us going. But back in the 1800s, things were a whole lot different. There were no digital alarms, no smartphones buzzing on the nightstand. Instead, the day started with the natural sounds of the farm, and the people who lived there were in tune with the rhythm of nature. In the 1800s, farmers were up before the sun, and I ain't talking about some leisurely stroll in the fields. These folks were up and at 'em, ready to face the day's challenges head-on. They didn't have the luxury of hitting the snooze button or lounging in bed for a few extra minutes. The work was waiting, and it wasn't going to do itself. We're talking 4 a.m., pitchfork in hand, ready to tackle the day. Imagine waking up in the pitch dark, the only light coming from the stars and maybe a lantern. The air is crisp, and the world is still asleep, but not you. You're already thinking about the tasks ahead, feeding the animals, milking the cows, tending to the crops. It's a life that demands dedication and a strong work ethic. The rooster might have been the first sound, but it was the smell of manure and the prospect of a hard day's work that really got these folks moving. The rooster's crow was like nature's alarm clock, signaling the start of another day. But it wasn't just the sound that got them out of bed, it was the knowledge that there was work to be done, and the farm depended on their efforts. And forget about a cup of coffee and the morning paper. There were no modern conveniences to ease into the day. No electric coffee makers, no newspapers delivered to the doorstep. The morning routine was simple and straightforward, focused on getting the essentials done before the sun was fully up. These folks were fueled by necessity and maybe a swig of lukewarm water. Breakfast might have been a quick bite of bread or some leftovers from the night before. There was no time for a leisurely meal. The workday started early and ended late. Every moment counted, and there was always something that needed doing. Now, you might think that's rough, and you wouldn't be wrong. It was a tough life, no doubt about it. The days were long, the work was hard, and there was little room for rest. But there was also a sense of purpose and fulfillment that came from working the land and providing for one's family. It was a life of resilience and determination. But there's a certain honesty to it, a connection to the land and the rhythm of nature that's hard to find these days. In today's fast-paced world, we often lose sight of the simple pleasures and the satisfaction that comes from a hard day's work. The farmers of the past were in tune with the seasons, the weather, and the needs of their land. They understood the importance of patience and perseverance. These were tough people, no doubt, with calluses on their hands and dirt under their fingernails. Their hands told the story of their lives. Years of hard work, dedication, and a deep connection to the earth. Each callus was a badge of honor, a testament to their strength and resilience. But they were also resilient, resourceful, and knew the value of hard work. They didn't have the modern tools and machinery we have today, but they made do with what they had. They were problem solvers, always finding ways to get the job done, no matter the obstacles. Their resourcefulness and determination are lessons we can all learn from, reminding us of the importance of hard work, perseverance, and a deep connection to the world around us. Alright, so the sun's up, the animals are fed, and it's time to hit the fields. Now forget your fancy tractors and GPS-guided planters. We're talking horse-drawn plows, folks. And if you were lucky enough to have one of those newfangled mechanical reapers, well, you were the envy of the county. These farmers, they grew it all. Wheat, corn, oats, vegetables, you name it, they planted it, tended it, and harvested it. And let me tell you, harvesting ain't no walk in the park. We're talking back-breaking labor, stooped over for hours on end with the sun beating down on your neck, and forget about complaining about a little heat. These folks worked through scorching summers and bone-chilling winters. It was a 24/7, 365-day-a-year gig. Now you might think farming back then was a solitary life, but you'd be wrong. The image of a lone farmer toiling away in isolation is far from the truth. In reality, farming was a communal effort, a way of life that involved every member of the family and often extended to neighbors and friends. It was a tapestry of shared labor and mutual support. It was a family affair, folks. The farm was the heart of the household, and everyone had a role to play. From dawn till dusk, the farm buzzed with activity, each person contributing to the collective effort. Everyone, from the youngest to the oldest, had a role to play. The children weren't just playing around, they were integral to the daily operations. They learned the value of hard work early on, helping with chores that were essential to the farm's success. Ma was in the kitchen, tending the fire, baking bread, and preserving food for the winter. Her work was crucial, ensuring that the family had enough to eat during the harsh months when the fields lay dormant. She was the backbone of the household, managing not just the kitchen but also the emotional well-being of the family. Pa was out in the fields, but he wasn't alone. He had the help of his children and sometimes even neighbors. The work was grueling, but it was made lighter by the shared effort. They plowed, planted, and harvested together, each task a step towards sustaining their livelihood. The kids, they were right there alongside him, learning the trade, pulling their weight. They weren't just observers, they were active participants, gaining skills and knowledge that would serve them for a lifetime. It was a hands-on education, one that taught them resilience and responsibility. And let's not forget about the animals. Cows to milk, chickens to feed, pigs to slop. Each animal had its needs, and tending to them was a daily ritual. The animals were more than just livestock. They were part of the farm's ecosystem, contributing to its sustainability. It was a full-on operation, and everyone had to do their part. The farm was a living, breathing entity, and it required constant attention and care. Every task, no matter how small, was a piece of the larger puzzle that kept the farm running smoothly. Sure, there were arguments, disagreements, and maybe even a few slammed doors. Living and working so closely together wasn't always easy. Tensions could run high, especially during tough times, but these conflicts were part of the process, a way to navigate the complexities of farm life. But at the end of the day, they were a team, bound together by blood, sweat, and the land they worked. The farm was more than just a place. It was a shared journey, a testament to their collective effort and resilience. They found strength in each other, and that unity was the true heart of their existence. Section 4, Barn Raising and Gossip Swapping, the original social network. Now, just because you're working the land doesn't mean you're cut off from the world. These folks, they knew how to socialize. They had barn raisings, church socials, and quilting bees. And let me tell you, those events were the social media of their time. Think about it. You're working side by side with your neighbors, sharing stories, catching up on the latest gossip. It was a chance to blow off steam, connect with your community, and maybe even find a wife or husband. And let's be real, there was probably a fair amount of moonshine involved too. Section 5, From Eggs to Riches, the economic ecosystem of the farm. In this section, we delve into the intricate web of economic activities that sustained farm life in the 1800s. It was a time when every penny counted, and every resource had to be maximized to ensure survival and, if possible, a modest profit. Now let's talk money, folks. The economic landscape of farming back then was vastly different from what we see today. There were no large-scale agribusinesses or government subsidies. Instead, it was a world where farmers had to be shrewd, resourceful, and incredibly hardworking to make ends meet. Farming in the 1800s wasn't about getting rich quick. It was a labor-intensive endeavor that required a deep understanding of the land, the seasons, and the tools at hand. Farmers relied on rudimentary equipment, often passed down through generations, to till the soil and plant their crops. It was about survival, about putting food on the table and clothes on your back. Every member of the family had a role to play, from the youngest child to the eldest grandparent. Meals were simple but hearty, made from ingredients grown and harvested on their own land. These folks, they were masters of self-sufficiency. They had to be. There was no running to the store for a quick fix or a missing ingredient. If something broke, they fixed it. If they needed something, they made it. This ingenuity and resilience were the backbone of farm life. They grew their own food, raised their own livestock, and even made their own clothes. The farm was a self-contained ecosystem where every element was interconnected and interdependent. The crops fed the animals provided manure for the fields, and the cycle continued. And even made their own clothes. The women of the household would spin, weave, and sew, creating garments that were both functional and durable. Clothes were mended and patched, handed down from one child to the next, ensuring nothing went to waste. But that didn't mean they were completely cut off from the cash economy. While self-sufficiency was the goal, there were always things that couldn't be produced on the farm. For these, farmers turned to local markets and trading posts. They'd sell their surplus crops at the market, bringing in much-needed cash to buy essentials like salt, sugar, and coffee. These markets were bustling hubs of activity, where farmers could catch up on news, exchange tips, and build a sense of community. Trade eggs and milk for other goods, bartering was a common practice. Eggs, milk, and butter were often exchanged for items like fabric, tools, or even services. This barter system allowed farmers to acquire what they needed without spending precious cash, and maybe even sell a few livestock to make ends meet. Livestock was a valuable asset, and selling a cow or a few pigs could provide a significant financial boost. However, this was often a last resort, as animals were crucial to the farm's ongoing productivity. It was a delicate balancing act, carefully managing their resources and hoping for a good harvest. Every decision had to be weighed carefully, as a poor choice could mean the difference between a bountiful season and a lean one, and hoping for a good harvest. A successful harvest was a cause for celebration, a testament to the hard work and dedication of the entire family. It meant full bellies and a bit of security for the months ahead. And let's be real, there were times when money was tight, and they had to make do with what they had. Droughts, pests, and harsh winters could devastate crops and livestock, leaving families struggling to get by, and they had to make do with what they had. In these tough times, the community often came together, sharing resources and supporting one another. It was this spirit of cooperation and mutual aid that helped them weather the hardest of times. Section 6. Plows to Progress, How Technology Revolutionized Farming, sort of. Now, the 1800s saw some major changes in farming technology. We're talking about the transition from hand tools to horse-drawn equipment, and eventually the introduction of steam-powered machines. These advancements, they were game changers, folks. They made farming more efficient, allowed farmers to cultivate more land, and increased productivity. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. These newfangled machines, they weren't cheap, and not every farmer could afford them. And even if you could afford them, there was a learning curve, a whole new set of skills to master. So while technology was changing the face of farming, it wasn't always a smooth transition.